Hi, welcome to Surviving Motherhood. Hey, have you ever been in what you would call an impossible situation? Have you been in a circumstance where it just seemed like the situation was too much for you to handle, that really there was no way, honestly, if you're just being real about it, there's no way you could handle it, no way that you could get it done? Some days that's what mothering feels like to me. But I found a lot of comfort one day when I was reading about a time when Jesus faced an impossible situation. Really the disciples were the only ones who thought it was impossible. Jesus knew what he was doing. So over the next 3 Mondays, I want to spend a little bit of time with you looking at what Jesus did in this impossible situation. See what we can learn from him. The story I am referring to comes out of Mark chapter 6, and it is the feeding of the 5,000. You may be familiar with this story. There were thousands of people, 5,000 men, more women and children, sitting on a hillside. The disciples wanted Jesus to send them away to get something to eat, but Jesus said, "You give them something to eat." The disciples say, "No way, that's impossible. It would take 8 months of a man's wages. We can't do this." Jesus says, "How many loaves do you have? Go and see." So the disciples checked it out. They came back and they reported to him they had 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. I sort of think the disciples didn't expect Jesus was going to be able to do much with that. But in Mark chapter 6, verse 41, it says, "Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to his disciples to set before the people. He also divided the 2 fish among them all." And if you know the rest of the story, you know that everybody ate and was satisfied, and the disciples collected 12 basketfuls of bread and fish that were left over. But the thing that struck me about that verse are 3 particular things Jesus did after he took the bread. The first one is the one I want to talk about today. Jesus looked up to heaven. The disciples looked around at all of the hungry people. They were looking at the situation. They thought this is impossible. But Jesus looked up. He looked to his Father. He didn't dwell on the situation. He looked up. I don't know about you, but I tend to have a habit of looking around. I look at the situation, I look at the trouble, and I think it's impossible. I think we can learn a lot from Jesus if we take our focus off the situation and put it on God. I don't know what you're going through right now. I don't know if you're in the middle of an impossible situation, or maybe you just came through one. Perhaps you're about to go through one. But I want to encourage you today to follow Jesus' example from this story. In the middle of your impossible situation, look up to heaven. We'll see you back here next Monday, and we'll look at what else Jesus did.